In this video I will tell you about the number 10 mistakes I made when I learned to fly with this drone. So I hope you don't have to make the same mistakes.
So I've been flying the Neo 2 for quite a while now, and I really love it. It's small, easy to carry, quick to launch, and honestly it makes flying feel almost too easy sometimes. And I think that's exactly where most of my mistakes come from. The Neo 2 gives you confidence very quickly, sometimes maybe a little too quickly. So these are not generic internet tips. These are actually mistakes, frustrations and things I personally learned while flying this drone. Number 10. Flying too low over water. Now I actually do fly over water quite often. I filmed multiple shots above the Rhine River and those shots look amazing. But one thing I still don't fully trust is flying too low over moving water. I keep reading stories and seeing videos where the Neo 2 suddenly struggles to maintain altitude because the downward sensors get confused by reflections or moving water. And in some situations the drone can slowly descend, or even decide it wants to land. So personally, I stay a bit higher above water. Could I probably fly lower? Maybe. Number 9. Using gesture control when you actually need precision. Gesture control is one of the coolest things about the Neo 2. You raise your hand, it reacts. You move around, it follows you. And when it works, it feels almost magical. But I quickly learned that gesture control is best for relaxed situations. Good lighting, clear backgrounds, no obstacles nearby. But once things get complicated, or you need fast, precise control, the controller is just way more reliable. I had moments where the drone reacted slower than I expected, or simply didn't understand what I wanted it to do, and that's not something you really want near trees or obstacles. Number 8. Believing the advertised battery life. DJI says around 90 minutes, and technically that's true. But in real life, wind, recording video, moving around, stopping, turning, and all of that changes everything. For me, realistic flight time is usually more around 11 to 15 minutes depending on conditions. And in the beginning I made the mistake of planning shots that were simply too long. I thought, yeah, I still have enough battery. And suddenly the drone starts warning you that it wants to return home. So now I basically plan around 12 usable minutes instead of the advertised numbers. Number 7. Automatically trusting return to home warnings. This is something I really had to learn with the Neo 2. Especially in windy conditions, the drone can suddenly warn you that it wants to return to home, or even land immediately. And in the beginning I always listened to it right away. But later I learned that the Neo 2 can become very conservative with its battery warnings. You can actually cancel return to home. And even when the drone says it wants to land, you can often still keep flying with a little longer by carefully pushing the throttle stick upwards. Now obviously you don't want to completely drain the battery, but learning how the drone behaves helped me get much more out of the flight time, especially during battery tests or when trying to finish one last shot.
So these were the first couple of mistakes I made, and mostly they happen because you try too quick or get too comfortable with your drone. If you like this content and not subscribed, please subscribe so it will help me. And wait until the end of this video because I have a really important bonus tip that's not actually a drone tip. Let's continue with my top 10.
Number 6. Not checking your home point properly. This is something I almost learned the hard way. The home point is where the drone wants to return when the battery goes low or the signal gets lost. But if you move after takeoff and forgot to update it, the drone still thinks your old position is home. I had this while flying near trees. I moved to another position after takeoff, and when return to home triggered, the drone started flying back towards the original location, which was dangerously close to a tree. Luckily I cancelled in time, but after that I started checking my home point almost every flight. Number 5. Staying in normal mode for too long. When I first got the Neo 2, I basically threw everything in normal mode. And honestly, I think most beginners do. It feels like the safe default option, but after a while I noticed my footage didn't look as smooth as the cinematic videos I saw online. The turns felt too quick, the movement looked too nervous. At first I thought it was my flying skills, but after watching more videos I finally understood why people use Cine mode. The moment I switched to C mode, everything became smoother. The drone reacted slower, movements become more controlled and cinematic shots become much easier. Now I use Cine mode for cinematic shots and normal mode for regular flying. Number 4. Forgetting to actually record. This sounds stupid, but I've done this multiple times. One thing that confused me in the beginning is that the Neo 2 behaves differently depending on how you fly it. When you use palm takeoff without a controller, the drone starts recording automatically, so you get used to that behavior. But the moment you switch to the RC2, suddenly you need to start recording manually. And more than once, I made a great flight, landed the drone and realized I never pressed record. But it gets even worse. For my YouTube videos I also record the controller screen sometimes, and I forgot that several times too. So I had the drone footage, but not the controller footage I actually needed. And usually you only realize it after the moment it's already gone. So now I always do a quick checklist: drone recording, controller recording, storage free, battery good. Number 3. Using defaults and going too cheap on accessoires. When I first got the Neo 2, I basically flew everything on default settings. And honestly, the footage looked fine. But after a while I started wondering why my footage didn't look as cinematic as what I saw online. That's when I started learning more about the settings. Things like adjusting gimbal speed for smoother movement, using manual white balance so colors don't suddenly shift during a shot. And then I learned about the 180-degree shutter rule, which sounds complicated but really isn't. If you shoot at 60 frames per second, your shutter speed should be around 120. That creates more natural motion blur and instantly makes footage look more cinematic. And that's also why ND filters matter. At first I bought really cheap ND filters online because I thought, how different can they really be? But honestly, they were annoying. Hard to mount, frustrating to use, and sometimes I just avoided using them completely. Later I switched to freewheel filters, and the magnetic mounting system alone already made a huge difference. And because they are easier to use, I actually use them more often. And that improved my footage way more than I expected. Number 2. Thinking higher automatically means better footage. I did this too in the beginning. You get the Neo 2 and immediately you want to send it as high as possible. And yes, that view looks cool. But after a while I realized that most cinematic footage usually happens low to the ground. Following a path, flying through trees, tracking alongside a subject. That's where the Neo 2 really shines. And lower shots also feel faster, more dynamic and more immersive. Number 1. Getting too comfortable. The Neo 2 makes flying very easy. And that's exactly why I made a lot of these mistakes. I stopped paying attention sometimes, I trusted the drone too much, and eventually that confidence caused crashes. One of my first flights without propeller guard ended in a crash because I simply got too comfortable. Luckily the drone survived. But that moment reminded me, even though the Neo 2 feels easy, it's still a real drone. So my biggest lesson: respect the drone even when everything feels under control. One bonus tip I learned while making all these videos with the Neo 2: organization matters. By now I've recorded gigabytes and gigabytes of footage with this drone. And honestly the biggest problem becomes finding everything again later. Because if you just leave everything with the default file names like DJI 1, DJI 2, you will never find one perfect shot again when you actually need it. And trust me, while making this video I ran into that problem multiple times. So now whenever I record something important, I immediately give it a proper name and store it in a folder structure that actually makes sense to me. And if I don't need the footage anymore, I delete it. Because otherwise, before you know it, you're scrolling through hundreds of random clips trying to remember where something was filmed. So delete what you don't need and organize the rest before it becomes a mess. So those were the top 10 mistakes I made when learning to fly with the DJI Neo 2. And hopefully this will help you to avoid at least some frustration, crashes and other stuff that will probably happen when you start to learn and fly with the drone. At least it will get you some head start when you start flying with the drone. I hope this helps. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more Neo 2 content and see you in the next video.